Welcome back to another episode of Red Hawk Media. We're looking at After Effects today and what we can do with our lower thirds. Previously, we had an episode that was focused on creating the lower thirds and moving that workflow from Photoshop into After Effects. So this is kind of what we ended up with here. I'll show you the end result and then we'll work backwards to see how we got there. So just a basic lower third here. We drop this on over the top of any of our video, transparency, and then some basic animation. So you can see again, very basic, just comes out. We've got a change of position on the one part, text comes up, and then the secondary text fades in. There it is. Okay, now the question is, how did we get here? How did we do those animations? I'm going to abbreviate the first part because that was covered in the previous episode, but just the basics and the most important details first. Over in Photoshop here, this is the project that I was working with. You can see that I've got two base layers. I've got the main part here, which is this L-shaped lower third, and then I've got this rectangle here that is on its own layer, which is one of them that's animated. Now anything that you want to animate, you want to have on your own layers. And I won't lie, this lower third I did not create. I basically grabbed it. It was already pre-made. It was a template, and then I cut it up into some layers here. And that proved to be a little interesting because cutting across the lower thirds with gradients and a number of other things on them for effects, it's not necessarily the easiest way to go. So I kind of recommend you create your own. If you're going to do that, just a reminder on this, these are the settings that you want to use. You want 1920 by 1080. That is your movie size. That's the canvas size that we're working with. And anytime we're working with video, we need a higher resolution, so we go with 300. Okay, assuming that you've already created the document and you've already saved it, let's go to that. So now I'm back to After Effects here, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new project. Okay, and let's go ahead and save that one first before I get too far along here. We'll just call that lower third and put it right on the desktop. Boom. Okay, now I've got my new project here. I need to set up my workspace and all of that. So let's go ahead and go new composition within this. Boom. Okay, and that's where it asks us the details. Again, 1920 by 1080, it's the HD TV. If you know your frame rate, you can go along with that so everything matches up nice and neat. Okay, and go ahead and click OK. It creates my composition. Now I saved my Photoshop project to my desktop here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the PSD file of this. Okay, and I'm going to drag that in. So let's go ahead. Let's see here. It's called lower third. Let's see if I can find it. Here it is. And I'm going to drag that right into my little project area. Let's go ahead and try that again. Get this out of the way. And boom. Alright, now it's going to ask me this very important question. Do I want to edit the layers or do I want to merge them? I want to be able to edit. I want to retain the layer sizes because it's already all set up pixel by pixel. Click OK. Now, I've got my lower third in here in the project pane. Now I'm going to go ahead and drop that down into the comp. And you can see it's already comped out for you. It shows up. Right now there's nothing going on here for animation, but if I double click on that, it shows me the different layers that I've got to work with. So I got my lower third and then I've got layer 1 here. And you can see those as I mouse over them, how they're highlighted. Now, the example that I showed you before, we had the layer 1 being animated in. Let's start with that, actually. We'll do all the animations, then we'll line up the text, and that'll make it easier for the timing of everything. So here's where the learning curve begins for us. I'm going to go ahead and drop down layer 1, and the main thing that I want to do is I want to work with the position of it. Okay, so at the very beginning of this, the position is actually off the screen here. And so I bring that off. And you can see I got a little bit of a flaw here with that where there was a part that was not erased. I would want to go back to Photoshop, fix that. We're in a hurry here though, so we're going to go ahead and work through that. Now, from here, I can go ahead and I've got the stopwatch already clicked. I'm going to go ahead and move this just a tiny bit here because I want the animation to happen pretty quickly. And from here, I'm going to hold Shift and I'm going to drag that positioning in to where it's going to end up. Okay, if you hold shift, it keeps it in a perfectly straight line here. And I get that all lined up. I'm going to click off of that so I can see if I lined up the edges. Click back and just bump it over one notch here. And there we go, nicely lined up. So here's what I've got. Here's the start. And boom, that comes in. Let's try that one more time now that it's somewhat rendered. Okay, and boom. Alright, so relatively quick animation. Now, I don't like the way it goes right over the top of that other layer, so we're going to take layer 1 and we're going to drag that to the bottom here. So now we've got this, it passes through underneath, boom, like it's kind of shooting out there. Now, from there, let's go ahead and stretch my workspace so I can see in a little bit more detail, frame by frame, what's going on here. Makes it a little bit easier to work on. Let's go back. This is now come in here. And at this point, let's get some text to show up. So I'm going to go ahead and create that text, and I can do this one of ways. I'm going to go right back to the beginning here, and right there. All right, create a text layer. All right, set up all my stuff accordingly. Let's go ahead and click that off, and the text layer is going to be right in here. Okay, and this is going to be your main lower third title. So we've got white font here, all that good stuff, and let's go main. We'll go lower third main title. There we go. Alright, so that's in there. Let's adjust the size of this. Go ahead and highlight that. Dial up those pixels a little bit. And stretch that so it fills the space. Perfect. Okay, so I've got that created. Now, I'm going to go ahead and create my other text box while I'm at it. So I'm going to go ahead, draw another text box. And let's go ahead and click off of this, click back to our text tool. It's cueing us to create another one. This is going to be our secondary description. So we got to dial down the font size a little bit before we get typing here. And secondary, let's try that again, secondary description. And I'm kind of setting this up so that it can be like a template for the future. And we'll dial that up a little bit more. Let's highlight that. And there we go. That's nice. All right. And so we got our two text layers created now. Let's go ahead and animate those. Let's start with the lower third main title. If we're clever about this, we can actually hide it beneath the lower parts here. So let's go ahead and set up the positioning of that. I'm going to do the same thing that I did for the first part. I'm going to go to transform underneath the lower third main title text, and I click on position. Let's go ahead, and this part just came out. So we want the text to come in right at this point. Now, at the start, the text should not be showing. So let's go ahead and drag that straight down, or as straight down as we can. Right there. All right. And then just a few frames later, that will actually pop up here. And let's go right about there. Okay. And now drag this up. And again, we can hold shift. So that's a nice straight line straight up, so it doesn't look like it's going on a tangent like a wild drunken driver. Okay, and we're all set up. Perfect. Now, that's going to animate from below. Now, right now, it's not hid by that lower third part here, so we're going to take that whole layer. We're going to actually drag it underneath that, so it's hiding at the beginning. So here's what we've got, and that pops up. Nice. Now, secondary description. Let's start there. Right about the same time that that part is animating, maybe just a split second later because it is the secondary part, we're going to go to secondary description. Okay, and we're going to do something a little bit different here. Instead of just positioning it, let's go ahead and do an opacity thing. I don't really have anything to hide this behind, although I could create a mask. But I'm going to go ahead and click the stopwatch for opacity. And at the start here, where the playhead currently is, lined up with the other positions and all that, I'm going to take the opacity, put it down to 0. Then just a few brief frames later, I'm going to put it up to 100%, and it's going to appear to fade in. Alright, now, this is what I've got. There we go. Well, that happened pretty quick, so if I want to adjust the timing on any one of these, I can grab the keyframes, and I can actually slide them over. So right now I'm adjusting how long it gets up to 100% opacity for that description layer. So I put that back, And there it goes, a little bit more of a dramatic entry on that secondary description. All right, but we've got our transparency. It's all set up. Looks pretty good. We got the basics down. That's our animation. Now, we could, just to save us a little time on the exporting and all that, we can go ahead and trim our workspace down. Now, I'm in the comp, all right, or I'm inside of all the layers that's in the comp, the overall composition. So I'm going to take this. I don't need 30 seconds of workspace here, so let's drag that back and drag that back. Now, we do want to have a little time because when we take this into whatever editing program you're going to use, it's kind of nice to have a little extra. You know, you can decide, oh, this is going to be on a little bit longer because maybe the interview, the names aren't mentioned until a little bit later, or there's a lot of information that's on the lower third, and you want to just make sure that that's that we can see all that. So let's go ahead and bring this back here. Boom. All right. So now let's say, oh, this is going to be 3, 4, 5. Yeah, it's a whopping 10 seconds here. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and trim the work area, or trim the comp to the work area. And there we have it. That's everything that we need right there. Now, go ahead and close this out. And we're back to the main comp area. You can see that the main comp area is still 30 seconds, so we're going to trim that down as well. I'm going to take that back to the 10-second mark, like we did with the other one. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and trim that. Boom. All right, so that's everything that we've got in the 10 seconds. Again, not too bad. If I were really going to clean this up, I'd want to get rid of this ugly line that's in here, which is really super annoying. I'd have to go into the layer itself just to show you what that would be. If you had to make any edits after the fact, you got to go to the layer where the problem is, which I think it's on this lower third layer. Yeah, there it is. And then go ahead and grab my eraser, and then I'd have to go in here and as carefully as possible. Oh, getting way out of control with the brush size there. Let's go ahead and erase that out here. Okay, and I'm going to get a smaller brush size to work with here so that I'm not erasing too much. And that is pretty close there. Alright, that's all cleaned up. I'm now happy with that. Well, it would appear that it's still there. Not sure what that's about. Maybe it's on another layer as well, or I missed just part of it. So let's go back. My apologies here. Let's go ahead and clean up the rest of this here. I think it's over in that part. There we go. Alright, so now we're all done. There it is. Now, to export this bad boy, we got to get this out of here with transparency. That's the key. So, I go up to File, and I'm going to add it, go to Export, and add it to my render queue. In my render queue, instead of just my best settings here, I'm going to click on those, and I'm going to make one slight adjustment here. Actually, let's not touch anything in the best settings. We'll keep that. All right. Let's go to the lossless. All right. Instead of just the RGB, which is going to add black back into this background area, I'm going to say that I want the RGB, which is all the colors, and the alpha, which is our transparency. So that means that my lower third, maintaining the transparency, will now be exported properly. That's all I need. If you had audio that you queued up with this, you'd go along with that too. Chances are you're queuing that up, though, in your video editing program, so I click OK. Alright, now that part is all set up over here. Let's figure out where it's going to actually output to. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to call this lower third again. Alright, and we're going to save it to the desktop. It'll be a .mov, and then we're going to go ahead and click Save. Now, always misleading in After Effects. It feels like it should be done and that it should be exporting and all that. Don't forget to click Render over here. So I click Render, and it goes through. I can see it play all the way through here. And, yep, wait for that progress bar. And when everything's all said and done, it should kick out a file to my desktop that says lowerthird.mov. Okay, and voila, I get the magic little ring saying that it's done. Okay, let's go ahead and minimize that and come on out here. And here's what we've got. Boom. Awesome. All right. Thanks again for joining us for another episode of Red Hawk Media. Bye.